Hey YouTube, what's up? This is Ben from shouldIGetIt.com and of Ben Revs in Photography. In this video I'm going to be teaching you the basics of how to strobe a car, and we're actually going to be shooting this 2017 Honda Civic Sport midday. For more episodes, make sure to subscribe, as the show does come out every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And next week I'm going to be talking about how to price your photo shoots, how to actually get paid for photography. But in this video I want to show you kind of the fundamentals of how to angle your light, to light a car, whether it be midday or at night. And then we're going to go into Lightroom as well as Photoshop and combine all of the images to get this final shot right here. So in this video I'm going to be using the Xplor 600 TTL strobe. This is about $750. I'd say it's worth every penny if you're doing any studio photography for portraits, or if you're strobing cars outdoors. It is phenomenal, battery powered, which is awesome. But if you're just starting out, hit the Amazon link below, get the Yongnuo YN560. I used this for a while, and the only downside with using a smaller light like this is that you can't do it in bright situations. So midday, this just doesn't have enough power to kill the sun or overpower the sun, as most people would say. So I'm going to be using this, but if you want to try the same techniques, it's, you angle the light the same way, you shoot the same way, you just have to do it a little bit later into the sunset or at night. So try it out, and then if you really like it, upgrade to a bigger light like this. But now let's get started. I'll walk you through my camera settings, and then we'll actually start shooting this. So the first thing that you want to do is find an exposure that works for the background. So you want the background to be a little bit dark, that way the car will pop. And so I've done that. Most flashes and camera setups will limit you to 1/200th or 1/250th of a second. You'll see if you put like a flash on top of your camera, you won't be able to move your shutter speed in manual mode to more than 1/250th. This is due to the speed of the curtain sinking when you actually have your flash go down. So there are lights with high-speed sync like the Xplor 600 TTL, HSS, that stands for high-speed sync. Totally different topic. If you want to see that explained, there's a video down below. But anyways, we're going to set the shutter speed to 1/200th, and then we're going to go through the aperture range pretty much and see what looks good for the background and leaves the car a little bit dark. So I'm going to take an image here, 1/200th at f9, and we're going to see what that looks like. So as you can see, that looks pretty well lit. I mean, the car's pretty much lit up except for the front. That works, but I do want it to be a little bit brighter, or rather darker, so the car will pop more. So I'm going to do f16, and I like that image right there. f16, everything's kind of dark around the car. You can still see the highlights thanks to it being a white car, but you'll see with the strobe, it's really going to pop, and we'll get all the detail from the grill, and we'll light the ground as well. So once we have that, we're going to pop into live view, set our focus manually, and we're just going to adjust that, zooming in on the emblem and manually focusing, making sure our composition is good. Then set your polarizer filter to polarize for the front window, since we're just shooting that here. If you were shooting the car from a 3/4 angle, you polarize for both and get base exposures. Base exposures are just exposures with no flash in them and without you standing in there. We got that. And then we're going to change our lens to manual focus, turn off vibration control, turn on our trigger for the speed light or strobe. I have mine set to TTL, which is nice, and then we're going to walk around the car and shoot. Now, this is going to take a lot of trial and error at first, especially if you're shooting with a non-TTL speed light or strobe. So just change the power, see kind of what looks good. You'll get an idea of that here. Thankfully, this system works really well with TTL. That's why I highly recommend it. But now we're going to get started. So I'm going to set my Nikon D800 to self-timer mode. And basically what it's going to do is take 9 photos. And in between those, I'm going to move around the car and show you how to light the car, and then we're going to put those exposures together. So the biggest thing is you want to make sure that when the light hits the car, it bounces off of the car's panel and into the camera. Let's say I wanted to light this door right here, or the front quarter panel. Basically, you don't want to hit it from the side like this, because all it's going to do is hit right here, and the light is going to bounce right back. If I want it to go into the camera, I need to light it from about here. And imagine if I was like throwing one of those rubber balls that you play wall ball with. If I threw that at the car, it would hit right here, it would bounce right to the camera and probably knock it off the tripod, and that's what I want. I want the light to bounce off the car and right into the lens. So let's get going. We're going to set the self-timer here. We have 10 seconds a little bit through. We're going to start lighting the door. And I want to bounce through the front grille. 3, 4, 5, 6, front, and then we'll light on the side. Cool. So now that you saw all those shots go through, we're going to take them into Lightroom. We're going to then edit them just a tiny bit, put them into Photoshop, align the layers, and put it together. So let's hop into there right now. Alright guys, so now we are in Lightroom with the images. I've imported 10 files here. As you can see, one is a base exposure, so this has no flash. And then we have a few different exposures with the strobe walking around. And of course this photo just kind of for the lols. But what I want to do is pretty much get the exposure where I want it in one of the files, get the colors correct, get the white balance, all that stuff. I did my lens corrections on import, which we talked about in previous episodes, and then we're going to open these in Photoshop and it's going to come out looking like this. So just to give you a quick breakdown, here are the layers as I turn them on. So let me turn them off. So here is layer 1. And that's kind of the whole image there. And then I have this curves layer to brighten the grill and the emblem up front. So we're going to be going through that. But of course, first we have to start with the images in Lightroom. So I'm going to set my white balance. I'm going to go to develop, use the picker tool, and tell it that the car is white. And I want it to be white right there. Okay, so the colors look pretty good there. As you can see, I'm in the shot. My neighbor driving the car in is in the shot. Don't worry about this. This is all going to be very easy to not have to deal with because we're going to have so many different exposures. So we have that right there. I'm going to boost the shadows up a little bit. You can see I've done that. I want to bring the highlights down, not all the way, but you can see when the highlights are too high up, we lose the body lines right here. So I want to get a little bit of the body line back. So we're going to bring it down just a little bit. And then we can mess with the contrast. So I want maybe between +5 and +10. So let me just type in 6. There's our before and our after, and we're looking pretty good. So I'm good with that. I'm going to make sure all the images have the same settings on them. So to do that, go to Develop Settings, Copy, check all, copy, Command A to select all, and then let's paste these settings. So now all of these images have the same white balance. It is a little bit on the pink purple side. That's fine as long as everything looks the same. It's totally up to you the style and color you want to look for, but you also want to see in the images where the strobe hits a little bit harder. You want to check, make sure nothing's blown out. And it looks pretty good. I'll probably use the left side from this shot and the right side from this shot, so that way we have the lines in the hood defined nicely. And we're good. So now I'm going to basically open those files in Photoshop by hitting Command A, then right click, press Edit In, open as layers in Photoshop, and then you'll be ready to edit. So now that we have all of the files open in Photoshop, we can take a look through them. We can turn them off either altogether or one by one, kind of by just holding down and clicking on the eyeball icons. But I think they're actually well aligned here. Usually I would recommend that you select click and then type in align and hit auto align layers. But I am pretty confident that these are clean, so I'm not going to go through that. But I would recommend it. So select all your layers, hit auto align layers, then press OK. That way if your tripod moved at all between the shots, it will line up perfectly. But what we're going to do first is take our base exposure that has no flash at all. We're going to title it base and put it at the bottom of the image. Then we're going to start building it up one by one. So we're going to turn this image on right here. And you can see that in this image, my neighbor's car is in the driveway and we have a little bit of the ground lit here, and that pretty much lights up the left front of the car a little bit. So what we're going to do is hit the layer mask button, and very similar to our interiors video, we're going to set that layer mask to black, and now we have the car gone. So we're going to change this blending mode to lighten, and that means anything underneath that's lighter will come through. And then we're going to go to the next layer, select lighten again, and we're going to use a layer mask and get rid of me right here. So let's paint me out.
Let's get rid of the neighbor's car, and we're good. So you can see that we are already starting to build the image, and we want to make sure that we get rid of everything so that there's no ghosting in the image. And now we have kind of the edge of the headlights lit. We have a little bit of the mirror coming in, and then we have this shadow, and this creates a strange kind of double shadow. And so to get rid of that, what we're going to do is paint black, but I want it to not be as harsh of a brush stroke, so we're going to press 7 on the keyboard for changing our opacity to 70%. We're going to kind of feather it out right here, and that's going to look a little bit better. Then we'll go to the next layer, and this pretty much just lights up the roof. So just for my reference, I'll call that roof. I'm going to change everything to black by hitting Command I, so I'm inverting it. And then I'm going to paint white just on the roof right here. And you can see that if I paint white here, my neighbor's car shows up. So I want to make sure that stays black. And then I'm going to change the blend mode again to lighten. And what lighten does is it lets things through on the layers beneath it. So got that painted. As you can see, this is just a little effect here, and I only want it to affect the roof. And you can tell probably by now, if you've watched more episodes of Shooting Cars, that all these images are about building up little pieces at a time. Now here we have more of the interior. We have the A-pillar lit and the hood. This one I kind of want to skip for now. Here I want to light the front of the car, and again you'll see that double shadow kind of shows up. And so what I want to do is set this to lighten as well. And you can see it brings in the brighter pieces from beneath it. Then I want to erase myself, and of course erase my shadow on the ground. And usually when I'm working on the ground, I will do about a 70% brush, just so all the shadows get feathered together and there's no really harsh lines. And that's probably the biggest thing that changed me from not really knowing what I was doing with a strobe to making it look a little bit more authentic, I guess you could say, and that is by using a lower opacity brush when doing the layer masks between layers. So you can see that this brings in a lot of light on the hood and also the front of the grille on the left side right here. But the issue is we get rid of all of the beautiful detail lines on the body right here. So again, what we're going to do is a lower opacity. So I'm going to do about 50% here and brush black. And we're going to do that primarily on where that body crease is, and then also darken a little bit around it right there. So you can see that this adds a little bit of light. Again, brings my neighbor's car in, so I'm going to press 0, get rid of that, and now you can see that this lights the front of the car. Then we have the opposite exposure, and we're going to do the same thing here. So we are going to paint myself out. We're going to paint my neighbor's car away. We're going to press 7 for 70% opacity. Go down. There we go. And then again, it's a little bit too bright on the hood. So I'm going to hit 50%, and I'm actually going to let this be the natural light. And I'm basically blending together the natural light and the strobe. And now you can see how big of a difference that makes. Again, I'm going to set this layer to lighten so that the bottom comes through as well. And now we have a much cleaner light on this side. Now I do have a pretty harsh reflection here. I have two options. I can do the clone stamp method that we learned in episode 4 and try to clean it up. Or if I don't really need the light here, since it is a black panel, I can go through at about 80% and feather it out. So now it's clean. And I could do the same thing on the previous layer with this reflection right here and get rid of it. We do have one reflection on the base layer that's from the sun, so we can get rid of that with the patch tool or a clone stamp later on. But let's continue to build this file out. Now here, I have a little bit of the door lit. This is pretty much the pillar right here. You can see I have a big reflection on this side of the body, and I actually don't need that light too much. So this layer, I might just invert and keep a little bit right here. Just a tiny bit of light there, as you can see. And this layer is more down the side of the car, so I'm going to keep that. Again, change the blending mode to lighten on every layer once you're done with the mask, or you can do it at the start. It really doesn't make too big of a difference. But we're going to go ahead and erase myself and the neighbor's car. We're going to go on the ground. There we go, got the shadow done. I don't want this reflection here, so I'll get rid of that. And there we go. So I'm going to get rid of a little bit of this light that reflected from the car onto the ground. And that's looking pretty good. So you can see if we group the light layers, we went from this base image right here to this strobed image. And again, we can control the layer masks to control how lit the ground is. Or what we can do is make a selection around the car and then use adjustment layers to turn down or up the brightness and contrast of the ground. So I'm going to do this really quick by using the lasso tool. I'm going to click around the car, and guys, take a lot of time when you do this. I'm just going to do this really quick to show you an example, but click around the car, make sure you have everything selected nicely, and there we go. I'm going to feather this by about 90 pixels, hit the adjustment layers and hit brightness contrast, and then I can change the contrast of the ground. So I want to give it a little bit more. I could make it darker, or I could make it brighter. I like it a little bit on the darker side here. So you can see that just darkens the ground a tiny bit. And then you can see we kind of missed the center of the grill here, and I want the emblem to be a bit brighter. So I'm going to do the same idea right here. I'm going to just select this piece, build it all together, feather by about 40 pixels, and do the same thing, brightness and contrast. So I can bring that up. And as you bring it up, you probably want a little bit more contrast. So there we go. And now you can see that we have that detail even though we didn't necessarily hit it straight on with the strobe. So this is kind of the final outcome of the image. Again, I recommend you take this at a better location. You can see I have a basketball pole sticking out of this. I have a lot going on, these electric poles, another van in the shot, this ADT sign, stuff like that, things that I would get rid of. But hopefully this taught you how to put together a strobed image with multiple layers to still keep the body lines in it. And it is somewhat of a challenge with a white car because it's hard to get a dark enough exposure where it actually pops. But as you guys can see, again, this makes a really big difference. So expose for the car to be a little bit dark and then fill in the light with your speedlight or your strobe. If you want to get even fancier, open the door and from the driver's side, light the passenger seat. From the passenger side, light the driver's seat. So, you know, stand right here and point the flash here, stand here and point the flash there, and then add those layers so you can light the interior of the car as well. And this comes out really cool at night as well. You can do this at a lot of cool locations, and it's not necessarily light painting, which is cool. I will cover light painting again probably. If you haven't seen, I do have a tutorial on the channel, but this kind of teaches you the method of bouncing light into the camera and again blending the exposures together. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. DM me on Instagram at a car photographer with your results. Again, if you're using a speedlight, try doing this when it's darker at night because you need a lot of power to overpower the sun. So I will see you guys next Thursday at 9 a.m. We're going to be talking about how to price your photo shoots, how to get paid for the first time, and please leave a comment down below of if you are getting paid for photo shoots or if you have been and you're looking for more, because I want to know kind of what level you're at so I know what to talk about in that video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Peace.